all the researchers to get data. As you know, it's very difficult in the Middle East to get data to do the research. In order to do a quality research, a good research, we need data, and it's very hard to get access to many of the data sets that are there in the Middle East. As you all know, that not all the data sets that are conducted, for instance, by the CAPMAS are released or we're not allowed actually to use it. So when the ERF actually started the cooperation with the national statistical offices in the Middle East in order to get the data sets and to clean it and harmonize it and to make it available to the researchers, it was actually very helpful to most of us. So the main idea is to, as I mentioned, cooperate with the national statistical offices in the Middle East and all the countries in the Middle East as much as possible in order to get access to the available data set. Most probably, we're talking about the economic data set, we're talking about labor data set, labor force data set, we're talking about expenditure and consumption data sets, we're talking about special surveys like SIP. So we're trying to get access to this data from the national statistical offices. We're trying to clean this data, harmonize it, and at the end make it available to the researchers in order to do the research and do policies based on this research and be able to do evidence-based policies. So what we're gonna discuss today, I'm gonna discuss the Open Access Microdata Initiative at ERF. And the procedures that we follow in harmonizing any new data and the availability of the data sets that are there. And maybe at this step, I'm gonna do more talk about the availability of the data sets and the variables and more about ideas how to use these data sets. And at the end, actually, Dalia will go with you through the registration procedure. In order for you to know how to request the data and get access to the data, okay? As you know, actually, macro data is available. If you go to websites for instance, the World Bank websites or other websites, you're gonna see that there are macro level data by the countries. For instance, the GDP, for poverty, poverty rates, inequality measures. They are available for for all the researchers to be used, but unfortunately, micro level data are not available as the macro level data. Since the collaboration with the central agency, with the CAPMAS, actually, ERF took a leading role in creating the micro data infrastructure in the MENA region in order to carry out research projects. What do you mean by macro level data? Okay. By micro level data, we're talking about data at the individual level or household level, or actually at enterprises level. For instance, we can have data per individual. We can have data per household, like the expenditure and consumption. We can have data per enterprise in the country or in some regions of the countries, like, for instance, enterprise size. We're talking about number of workers in the enterprise and so on. So by micro level data, we're talking about the unit of analysis. It's not the country anymore. We're talking about the unit of analysis can be individual, can be household, can be, for instance, enterprise. Okay. Why do we need actually data? Why do we need micro level data? Because actually, when we have the data, we can do evidence-based research based on these data. And if we have quality data, actually the research is going to be more reliable. So this is the thing. And generally, there is positive relationship between availability of the data and the publication. We need publication because this is the sign of the evidence-based results. When we have evidence-based results, we publish these results. From these evidence-based papers, we can construct policies that should be helpful to the policymakers at the end. So this is the cycle that should be there. Data should be available, then use these data in in-depth analysis and doing evidence-based research. From this research, we can build some policies to the policymakers that should be implemented at the end in the country. So this is the reason that ERF took the initiative in doing the data portal and make the data available for the researchers. What are the procedures that are used in harmonizing newly acquired raw data? So at the beginning, we actually approach the different statistical offices about the new data sets. For instance, the most recent data set that CAPMAS has now should be the LFS, the Labor Force Survey for the year 2020. So we should approach them, ask for this data set or any other data set, like for instance, we're trying to request the same data sets from the Palestinian statistical office and from the Jordanian statistical office as well. When we get this data set, these data sets, we start cleaning them and harmonizing the data. Cleaning, because as you have experienced some of the data sets, you may see some inconsistency between the variables. So we check this inconsistency and we clean them. If there's, for instance, there's skipping that should have been there, but it's not there. If it shouldn't been there, but it's there, and so on. So the next step should be cleaning and harmonizing the data, and I'm going to discuss the meaning of the harmonizing in a little bit. And we recheck the data. After harmonizing, we check the consistency of the available data set with the previous one. For instance, if we have right now the labor force survey for the 2020, we check its consistency with the previous one and the one previous that, and we check the consistency of the results that we have with the reported one or published one by the CAPMAS, and make sure that everything is consistent, there are no errors, no mistakes. And after that, we start to document everything and get the documentation that are related to the data, for instance, the questionnaire, data dictionary, as I'm going to discuss later as well, any reports that were published related to the, for instance, the labor force survey, and so on. And we combine all these and publish this with the data itself in order to be disseminated and be available to all the researchers in the Middle East. So these are the basic steps. First of all, we are checking or approaching the different statistical offices to get the data. And we go through negotiation and many emails and nagging and so on. And then we start the cleaning and then harmonization, and then again checking the consistency of the harmonized, and then get all the needed documentations. And then the last step will be the dissemination. And as you see, if it's disseminated or published through the website, we need other programs in order to publish them. There's a program called Nestor, so we have to do it in a way that end up with the look that you're going to see at the data portal later. Okay. What about the data dictionary that I just mentioned? The data dictionary is very important, actually, because it provides all the guidelines for the researchers and the harmonizers. It lists all the available variables in the data set, okay? And how were these data or variables were mapped with other data sets, with the questionnaire and with the other data sets. For example, I'm gonna share another one here. Okay. Can you see the Excel sheet?
No.
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 I think you have to exit out of this share and then reshare.
You have to stop sharing and then share the screen, not share the screen.
We can see it now.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Let me, introduce this in more details because this is very important actually. Because most of the researchers who download the data, they just look at the data and they don't pay attention to the data dictionary. For instance, this is an example of the data dictionary for the labor force, for the harmonized labor force survey of Egypt 2018. So in each labor force survey that we have in the data set, we have several countries. We have labor force surveys from Egypt, Jordan, Palestine. So we have to add a variable that specifies which country is this, for which country this data set, okay? And which year. As you see, we're gonna have labor force survey 2018. So this should be the year of 2018. And we have a series of data sets for the labor force. As you're gonna see, we have 2000, starting from, I think, 2004 till 2018 for Egypt. And other variables that are available in the data, data type, individual ID and household ID, and the weights. For those who ever use national representative data, they know for sure that they need the weights in order to do in-depth analysis, in order to do any statistical analysis using, for instance, data, using SPSS, you need to specify the weights in order to be representative nationally. Without the weights, it's only the sample. In order to get the sample representing the whole country or the national, I mean, the whole nation, you should use the weights. And it's usually there. You don't compute anything, it's usually there. Some variables indicating the region, whether it's urban, rural, number of household, number of males in the household, number of females in the household. These variables, we don't get the data with these variables. We don't have the number of females in the household. We don't get the number of males in the household. We compute them and we add them to the data set in order to have them and make it available to the users, okay? We have the number of unemployed males above 15. And as you see here, it's specified here which variables are generated by the ERF in column K. And in column J, it explains how we computed these variables using which variables from the raw data or from the questionnaire. So we generate some of these variables and some other variables, we just put them if they are consistent with other years and consistent with other countries. For instance, gender, we have the gender here. We have the marital status. We need to classify it consistently with the other countries. We have the education variables. In the education variables, we have so many variables. We have the literacy status. We have the education highest attainment level. We have the years of education and so on. So for each data, we have actually two data sets. One data set is for the household and the characteristics of the head of the household and its spouse. And another data set is for the individual. So if you want to, you can merge two data sets together. For instance, you have a kid who's 22 years old and he's entering the labor market as the first job, and he's entering as a first job in informal job, private sector, for instance, a private sector without any social insurance, without contract, and so on. And you want to relate this with the characteristics of the employment of the head of household. You can do this. You can combine the two data sets together using merge. Okay. Definitely, since it's labor force survey, you have more variables regarding the occupation, regarding the economic sector, regarding the irregularity of the job, wages, and so on. So we do have these variables for the head and the spouse, and we do have these variables for the individual as well. Okay. We make sure that the names of these variables are the same through the years and through the countries. So if I have the data set from Palestine, it has the same names and it's constructed in the same way in order to have the same categories. Okay. If we have the data set from 2015 and 2018, we make sure that all the names are the same. The variables are representing the same thing or reflecting the same thing through the years. Why do we need this? Because at certain, some of the researchers, they need to do comparable studies, either between the countries or through the years. So we make it very easy for them, because otherwise they are gonna have to go to the raw data with different names. Sometimes the questionnaire differs through the years and they have to do it by themselves. So we make all these available just by clicking the same command. You're gonna get the same, not the same output, but I mean the same reflected output through the countries or through the years. We do this for the labor force survey, and we do this as well for the hikes, which do you know what stands for the hikes?
No.
Okay, it's the household income, expenditure, and consumption surveys. These are the surveys that produce to us the poverty rates and the inequalities, the Gini inequality. Okay. We're gonna discuss in more details which data sets can be used for what. Okay. But this is a way to explain the data dictionary. So when you look at the data set, first you need to know how these variables are constructed to make sure that you are using the right one that you have in mind. Okay. Do you have any questions so far?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
You can stop me at any time and ask me. Okay. So this is an example for the data dictionary. I'll go back to the presentation. As it's mentioned here, the level of details the level of details in the variables differs according to each survey and between the years, but we need to make them as consistent as possible. Actually, one of the most annoying thing that a variable, it's always there for instance, 5 or 6 years, and suddenly CapMass decides not to gather this information anymore. So it's gonna be there in the data dictionary that's not available anymore. And at least, I mean, because before getting the data, we need to know what's there and what's not there. And by the way, the data dictionary, the questionnaires, and the list of variables are available for download without any requests. and I will show you how they are. Okay, what do we have? We have two main groups of data sets. The household survey. In the household survey, what is the individual, what is the unit, the analysis unit? It's either the individual or the households, okay? And we have the sectoral firm level surveys. And in this case, the unit of analysis is the firm or enterprise. And we have other macro level data as well. It's the NIDO industrial statistics database for some of the years. Let me go through the micro level data of the households. We have several groups. We have recently we added a COVID-19 MENA monitor surveys. These are phone surveys that were conducted recently, and they are repeated surveys. So we're gonna follow up the same individuals every 2 months in some of the countries. It covers 5 countries so far: Tunisia, Morocco, Egypt, Jordan, and Sudan. It has small modules, which means small groups of questions asking about the labor force participation just before COVID, just before February 2020, and currently. So we can observe the changes that happen between these two data points and the impact of COVID on the labor market participation and unemployment. There's a small module about women and the care economy, or taking care of the kids, and how many hours they usually spend before the COVID and after COVID taking care of the kids. There are questions about the farmers, about the agriculture, and there are questions for the business owners. Again, let me, would you like to see an example of the questionnaire?
Yes, sure.
Yes. Okay. This is a phone survey, and because of it's a phone survey, it has to include a shorter number of questions, because no one on the phone will be patient enough to answer in more than 15 minutes max. Okay. So I'll. I should have it here. The other data sets, till I get you the questionnaire, is the hikes that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. And the hikes actually ask about the expenditure of the household during the previous year. It asks about how much did the household spend on, for instance, food. In details, actually, meat, vegetables, fruits, dairy products, and so on. And how much did the household spend on education? How much did the household spend on health? How much did the household spend on transportation? And so on. And it's very useful, actually, in many things. One of the major things, actually, that it's used to for, actually, is the poverty rates. So mainly the poverty rates are computed in Egypt and in Palestine as well, and Jordan, from the household income, expenditure, and consumption surveys. It's in addition to that, since you know the budget of the household budget, and how much do they spend on each, you can study the budget allocation. For instance, this is a question for some of the students. What do you believe, will have a higher percentage on food? Poor households or rich households?
The poorest.
Why?
So like who will consume food more?
Do they consume food more?
No, so like the question is rich people, of course, consume more food, right?
No, isn't it because the consumption percent, like the food consumption percentage in the poor is higher than the rich, like the marginal consumption?
Exactly.
Mm,
They may spend less than the rich, but actually as a percentage they spend more
mhm.
because most of their income actually goes to the food.
Because it's a necessity, right?
Yes, exactly. Because it's necessity. And in addition to computing the poverty rate, you can also compute the inequality measured the Gini coefficients. So it's also computed from the hikes. You can also study the child poverty from the hikes. You can study multidimensional poverty from the hikes. And the multidimensions not only monetary poverty, but also other dimensions of the poverty, for instance, like education, health, and so on. You can study the determinants of health expenditure, of education expenditure, and so on. So it's a very wealth enriched data sets that can be used. And it's available at the ERF site for several years actually. So you can even study the trends of the poverty rates or the budget allocation. You can see, for instance, the budget allocation just before COVID. And we cannot do actually after COVID. They still don't have the hikes after COVID, but you can see it, for instance, before the devaluation of the dollar of the Egyptian pounds, and after that, and so on. You can see before 2011 and after 2011 whether people in Egypt or households in Egypt spend differently between these 2 points or not. You can compare within the same data set between poor and rich. How much do the poor spend on education, and how much do rich spend on education, and the determinants of spending on education, whether educated parents means a higher expenditure on education or not, and so on. So it's very rich and can be used for several things. Okay, let me share with you the COVID questionnaire. It's not there. Oh, yeah. This is the COVID questionnaire. Actually, there's a mistake here. Here, this is the questionnaire. It has several modules. The core module at the beginning, where the demographic and household characteristics are asked, and then some question regarding the education level, and then labor market status. And there are questions about the food security, because it was important to ask about how the household whether the household experienced any difficulty due to COVID-19 or not. They were asked about some of the coping strategies, whether they how did they manage to go through the difficulties of COVID, and whether they have received any help from government or non-governmental organizations. And there is the module about the farmers. Another module for the business owners, and a woman module whether they on the typical of, for instance, here's the example of a question on typical day in the past week. How many hours did you spend taking care of children, and how does this time compared to other to a similar week just before COVID? So you can see or compare the time spent on childcare just before and after COVID. Okay, so this is an example of the questionnaire. I'm sorry, I keep going back and forth. But I think it's important for you to see it's important for you to see different types of questionnaires and to see the questionnaire before you request the data, and see the data dictionary before you request the data, and make sure that the research question that you have will be answered with these variables in the data set. Another one will be the harmonized labor force survey. The harmonized labor force survey we have through the countries we have for Palestine, Jordan, and
Yes, please. Yeah, I'm Rania. Dr. Jamal, I have a question regarding the COVID surveys. So should we ask it now?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much, Maya. Thank you so much, Rania. Just quick question, Maya. For these household surveys, do we have any information about the pre-COVID? Do we have any data about the same households before COVID, not from the survey?
Okay, we have questions, retrospective questions about the status just before COVID in February 2020. And the question regarding the coping strategies, for instance, are referring to the COVID period. And we have questions about the change, for instance, in the income, comparing last month with the month just before February 2020. So the comparison, it's there on one hand. On the other hand, actually, we're going to have a panel in the next wave.
Okay.
In the next surveys, it's a panel from, right now, it's going to be a panel from Tunisia and Morocco. So we can, you can observe the changes that happens through the months, actually, not the years. It's because it's, we are repeating the survey every 2 months.
Okay, that's really, really great. And the same for the firms. So let me just repeat my question again. So for because I know ERF is doing a lot of these surveys, and we know I have a lot of data before. So these are not the same households that they were surveyed before, like before COVID.
We didn't survey before COVID. We started the survey after COVID, and we had retrospective questions.
Okay. So we don't. No, I mean, like from other household surveys that that ERF has access to. So these are not really the same ones. We have maybe similar questions I can compare before and after.
No.
Okay.
Because of several issues, actually.
Yeah.
This is a phone survey. So the target population were individuals aged 18 to 64 who owns a cell phone.
No, that's really, really brilliant. And is it the same for the firms? You're also asking questions at the firm level, what happened with you before? And so you're asking them during the COVID and asking them about their past experience. You don't have the data from the past experience.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Okay, amazing.
Exactly.
We'll follow up. Thank you.
Okay. And actually, we're hoping that we're aiming by the next week that we're going to release the second wave of the data. It's going to include the panel, the second panel for Tunisia and Morocco, and Egypt. It's going to be the first wave because the last one that we released for Egypt wasn't actually the same survey. It was from Basira. So the one that we're going to release coming week, inshallah, it's going to follow the same questions as I showed you, and Jordan as well. And in the future, there's going to be another wave for Sudan. All these are the households. And we're going to follow up the Jordanian household that we asked this time and the Egyptian household and the third wave.
Yeah, and are you just on the firm level, are you comparing between what you are doing here in this amazing survey with the enterprise surveys? Because they're trying, I think, to do similar exercise.
What enterprise survey?
There is a World Bank database called the Enterprise Surveys. It's related
Yeah, but this is not a phone survey.
But they are struggling. We can maybe, because there's no, are they able, I'm challenged because they are able to cover many countries, and what you are doing is really important, but what you are doing, they are not able to do. So maybe some collaboration is needed because we are not able to get data before and after COVID, or even during what you are calling the second wave of COVID at the firm level. So there's something maybe here also to.
Okay. First of all, this is gonna be, a phone survey. It is a phone survey, and this questionnaire is smaller than the face-to-face surveys.
Yeah.
I'm not aware whether the ILO is currently conducting. You mentioned
No, the World Bank.
World Bank. The World Bank, whether they are conducting right now other surveys, enterprise surveys or not. I'm not aware of this.
No,
but if you're talking about the previous ones, they used to be face-to-face, and the questionnaire is much longer.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So, just to clarify, Jamal is talking about the firm level data. Are you doing something related to COVID on the firm level? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're doing. Yes, and it's going to be released within 2 months.
Because so you're calling like there's one that you're calling like a young person or whoever, like 18 to 64 that have a mobile phone. This is this is
another. I'm sorry, Rania. I'm sorry. Maybe I didn't explain this in details. There's another group of surveys that we're gonna conduct. Actually, we conducted, but we're gonna release the data very soon, inshallah, maybe within a month or longer. That asking the firms.
Okay. Very good.
Yes, they are targeting the firms. The small and medium firms.
Okay.
That's really amazing. It's really needed.
Yeah.
So forward to see.
Sorry,
it's
because
really
I'm living I'm living right now with the surveys. I was confused. I thought you know it. So
no, I'm sorry. I arrived late. I was apologizing privately from Rania because I was teaching the students.
No, I didn't mention it earlier. The thing is,
it's really amazing.
Yeah, I'm overwhelmed with the COVID survey, so I thought that I mentioned it. No, we're gonna release. Actually, it's gonna cover Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, Jordan.
Okay. Maya, this is very interesting, but unfortunately, like 10 minutes and the students have to leave. I will stay. So if you
okay. Let me go through the 2 more things actually that I want the students to know about: the harmonized labor force surveys and the labor market panel survey. The harmonized labor force surveys, as I mentioned before, we have it for long periods for each of these countries: Egypt, Palestine, Jordan, because it's repeated every year. So you can observe the change that happens in the unemployment rates, the change happens in the women labor force participation, the changes that happen in, for instance, the labor force participation. I'm sorry, in certain regions, in rural, in urban, the trend of informality as a percentage of all the waged workers. So this is the thing actually that's very important with these labor force surveys, because you can observe the trend through the years. If you have longer than this data sets, for instance, like more than 30 years, we don't have 30 years yet, but if you have more than 30 years, you can apply more in-depth analysis as time series analysis. But right now we have very interesting a number of data sets through the years. They can be used and give very, very, very good idea about the trend on all this that I mentioned. You can definitely do it by, for instance, unemployment in general, or unemployment by gender, or by educational level, and so on. And the labor force survey, they cover only the employment part, unemployment part, labor force participation, labor characteristics like occupation, economic activity, as I mentioned before, wages, and so on. They don't cover much more dimension than this. But the labor market panel survey actually covers more than this. It has so many modules. It's repeated every 6 years. Till now, it's repeated in Egypt, Jordan, and Tunisia. And it has so many details, like the questionnaire itself can be filled in 2 hours. So they ask so many questions about the labor market, education, women participation, marriage, norms, maybe what else? Enterprises, household enterprises as well. So it's very good because you can combine all these, and you can correlate these variables together. So the effect of the attitudes of the females on her participation in the labor market, and so on. So this is good in relating different things together and study the correlation between these variables. Let me stop here and give the floor to Dalia in order to tell the students how to do the registration. Okay, Dalia?
Hi. Hi,
So-
everyone. Dr. May, could you let me share my screen?
Oh, okay. I'll stop and start sharing your screen.
Okay. And now I will take you on a very, very interesting tour at ERF Data Portal. Actually, if you search, actually, Dr. Rania, I couldn't hear you. 1 second.
Just before we start with your part, can just like one student want to ask Dr. Mai something?
Yes, sure.
I just have a question about the data collection because you mentioned that it was hard at first and that it required like emailing and like some negotiations and stuff. And then you said that the data was like accessible to like the public. So I'm confused what the difference is. Is there like some data that's still like difficult to access while other is just out for public, like older data or something?
Yes, actually, not older data. We have new data. For instance, let me give you an example in Egypt. Right now, we have the most recent data for labor force surveys and the household income and expenditure, the hikes. But actually, the CAPMAS conducted other national surveys like migration, gender-based violence, child labor. So right now we are trying to negotiate with them in order to get these data and make it available for their searchers. But I have to say, and I have to mention this, these data sets are available on their website, on the CAPMAS website. They have like, not similar, but they have a data portal as well. And you can request the data, but unfortunately they are not translated. The labels can be found in Arabic. If you have, for instance, they have a child labor survey that was conducted in 2010. And there's another one, for instance, in Jordan. These two are not harmonized. So, I mean, if it's a unique data set, you can request it from the CAPMAS, but as I mentioned, you won't find the labels translated. And if it's like a repeated survey, like labor force survey or the hike survey, it's better to request it from the ERF data portal, because as I mentioned, you're going to have the same names of the variables. You can apply the same command for Egypt, Palestine, Egypt 2015, Egypt 2017, and so on. You won't need to go through the questionnaires and check the variables names and see what does this variable means and so on. You have everything in the dictionary, in the data dictionary. Okay, and they are consistent, as I mentioned, through the years and through the countries, between the countries. Dalia, can you start now?
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
I think Dr. Jamal have a question.
Jamal, do you still have a question, or this is an old hand?
No, sorry, that was an old hand. I should.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. It's a ERF website. You can take a tour on ERF website. It have paper that ERF publishing before. It may help you at your research in general. But you are, if you're interested at the ERF data portal, you can just click at data portal, and this page will open. Now we have 118 data set. If you are interested at a specific country, you can search by country. If you are interested at the specific survey type, you can just click on your survey, and all the survey at this type will appear. So if you interested, for example, at labor force survey Egypt 2017, you can click on it, and you can find all the information on this data set, title, country, about it in general, the history of the survey, sampling, the data collection, also the questionnaire, the module of the at the questionnaire, data processing, the citation. Also, you can get the citation from the slide description. And if you are interested at the documentation on the survey, you can find it at documentation tab. You will find the questionnaire or the report that published on this data set. Also, the data dictionary that Dr. Mai talked about. Also, all the manuals or the codes or international codes that we used at the cleaning and harmonization, you will find also as other material. And if you want to explore our data before requesting, you can find it at data description. You will find that this data set have two data files, one for household and another for individual. You will find the variable groups if you are interested, for example, on the spouse characteristics. You will click on spouse characteristics, and all the variables that at this data set will appear to you. If you can see also if this variable are in the data or not. Okay, this is a variable or related to spouse characteristics. You can open it and see if you can open and see the values. We have at this data set 62,676 observation, and also another information on this variable. Okay, if you okay at this data set and you want to request it, you just click at get microdata. This tab will open for to you to log in if you have a previous account at ERF data portal. If you're not, you should register and fill this request. The activation email will send to your email to activate your account, and then just log in again and you find this data request. As a hint for you, If you are undergraduate, so you will have a specific topic you want. Just write all the information that you have to give us an opportunity to get the data, to give you the data. Also, if you have a team member, just write it and request from your team member to also request the data.
May I add something here, Dalia, as a hint? So if you're doing the project, for instance, a graduation project with the supervisor, with a professor who supervises the project, please don't write the name of the supervisor, because we're going to ask the supervisor to do another request. So just say it's a graduation project, okay? To make it easier for you.
Yes. Okay. If you want,
actually, that's really important. By experience. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I follow a lot of steps to give the data, but yeah, it's just for registration. Okay, if anyone interested to request two data sets, you can just click on request 118 study, select what you want from what you want. Just example, you want these two only data set, so we will have the request with two data sets. But also, just a hint, you shouldn't request the 118 data set. If you want to explore the data, you just go to the data itself and data description, just explore the data variables and the availability of the variables from data description or data dictionary, and request what you want. Okay.
As Dalia was mentioned here, actually the documentations are downloadable, so you don't need to request them. You can just download them.
Yes, you can download it easily without any request, without anything, without حتى يعني even if without you can make an account at ERF. You can go to the the documentation tab, download what you want. That's it. Anyone have a question?
Thank you.
So like what takes, like basically all the documentation are made directly, like website, and you just get it in a minute. So what takes time is just like to request the data.
Yeah.
How long usually would it take if a student requests the data?
Actually, it should take 5 working days. If the data, every email will take five working days. So if we request it from the student to the team member should request that data, this will take another 5 working days maximum.
Oh, so it's only one person in the team. That's enough.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
But actually, the student should write everything as the intended use of data, the expected, to let us to let the procedures work faster.
Now, usually, yes, ask my students to write basically for a project in this course that they are doing. And write everything about the idea of the project, because I believe this is an important database by itself forever later on. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's very important. And even before getting the research questions, if I may advise them to go through the data sets and go through the variables, the list of variables, for instance, or data dictionaries, and make the research question from the variables available and not the other way around. I mean, don't have a research question and then look for the variables. First, look for the variables and then have your research questions.
Or actually,
the way in Egypt. I'm sorry, but this is the easiest way in Egypt.
Usually, we readjust the research questions based on what.
Yeah, okay, they can readjust, definitely.
Yes. Yeah. There is a question by Nadine Nadine Fahmy?
Yes, I just have a short question actually.
Okay.
Okay, 1 second, I'm sorry, I forgot the question, but I will remember it right now.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So I wanted to ask how after you guys clean and harmonize the data, are you also responsible for recommending policies, or is that someone else's job?
We make the data available for the researchers. The researcher they do their research, and they do produce their own policies, and that's it.
But
Okay.
ERF has like another department that is really so much into of course research of the young and senior level researchers in the region. So
It's called the research department is usually what makes use of the data and investigates it further to recommend further actions.
Okay, let me explain here. The role of the ERF actually, if you keep tracking with the ERF data website, I'm sorry, you'll see that they have calls for papers every while. So they request proposals from the different researchers in the regions with their ideas about research questions, and the researchers they submit their proposals, and the proposals that are accepted, they continue with them, helping them produce the papers, and usually it's paid papers. They pay for them to produce the papers. The same for the policy briefs. And actually, I believe several years ago they have the same thing for young researchers. Remember, Dr. Rania, I believe Iman Hilmi was the one who won this several years ago, صح?
They do yes, they also do like the ERF is very nice actually in building capacity of young researchers. This competition from to encourage young researchers to produce like a sort of policy brief using particularly using one of the data sets that is available through the data portal. And this was really a very interesting and fascinating opportunity for the young people all over the MENA region, and they had a very interesting, very nice dissemination event, which actually I attended, and one of the ASEAN's graduate students won the first prize. Okay, she's now also recently got her PhD. Yeah. She's Iman Hilmi. She was a master's student at ACA, and now she has a PhD, and also she did work at the World Bank, and now she's actually helping the Minister of Social Solidarity.
That's great. I'll look into it. Thank you for
the ERF of AC students.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Other questions? Is it clear for everybody the value of the ERF data and how they can request it? Do you have questions about that? For actually the labor group, maybe you're not going to be really requesting data to use it, but actually you got knowledge about where can you search for information about a data that can link very well to your qualitative work that you're going to be doing in your research. So ERF also is like a very rich place where you should go for data for paper that actually use such data that Dr. Mai presented with similar topics that she talked about. Okay, if there is no other questions, we'll stop here. I really need, I'm very happy that you were able to make it and present such data portal to the ERF, the AC students. I've been talking about it a lot in all my classes, but this is the first time they get the word from the ERF people themselves. You'll expect to get a lot of my students requesting data.
That would be great, actually. That will make Dalia very happy.
Yeah, make it less than 5 days if possible.
Yes, okay, we'll try our best.
Other classes, of course, not only mine. Thank you, thanks again, and I'm sure this was very, very helpful, and expect a lot of professors that also
and definitely if you have any other questions, you're free to, feel free to ask us even through the emails. I believe Dr. Rania, she has our emails, so please
We
feel
do,
free
but
to ask
if
us anything.
you just go to the ERF, you'll find the emails of Dr. Maya. It's easy to, it's a very nice website, the ERF, much easier, very easy to search in it, yeah.
Actually, also, you will find the ERF data porter email. If you have any question, you can send it us your question. Sorry.
Great, yes. Thank you.
Dalia doesn't want to receive a lot of emails. Send it to the ERF portal.
But you didn't know, Jamal, that she's the one who will answer these emails. She's the one who will answer these emails anyway.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. You don't have to send it to my private email. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Rania. Thank you, Dr. Jamal. And thank you, everyone who attended this presentation. I'm very glad to have the opportunity to meet all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
It was
you.
really, really
Thank you.
great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks,
Have
everyone.
a nice day.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.